This meeting is being recorded.
Hey everyone, I am so excited for you to be joining us today. My name is Colleen Tatum, and this podcast is Rising Through. It's about the struggle that is actually key to so many people's success. Sometimes in life, we think, hey, I would want to avoid struggle as much as possible. But what I've learned is that actually, when I interview super successful people, the struggle is actually a requirement in their success. So we are interviewing or meeting Ginger Auger today. I am so excited for you guys to meet this powerhouse woman that is just on a firestorm of success right now. She is speaking on multiple stages. She has a successful business. She's a mother, and she's a recent award recipient for Top 50 Under 50 in Fort McMurray, Alberta. She's also won the local entrepreneurship award. I know she's nominated for the Alberta Entrepreneurship Award, which is through the Alberta Chamber. I am so excited for you, Ginger, and I'm really excited for our guests to learn a little bit about your story. So if you could kind of tell us, I was looking at your bio, and I was looking at kind of your story, and it's so incredible. But I would just love to hear from you, kind of where you started out, and kind of a little bit about that journey to where you are today.
Tansei, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm on Treaty 8 territory in the Métis lands in Wood Buffalo, which I love. It's an amazing area, and it's really helped me on my journey. But I'm so happy. This is a great podcast because this is what helped me on my journey, is like podcast, people sharing their stories and just inspiring me and thinking I can do it. But where I started, I started as a little one with young parents. I had two young parents, and they were so young. They were 14 and 16, and my mom really tried. She was raised by her grandmother, who was in residential schools. It was tough for her growing up, so she faced a lot of things, as her grandmother did. So it was just a big cycle of a lot of stuff, and she really tried to move on her own. She became a single mother because they were so young and just figuring out their own lives. And she moved us around to survive. She didn't have no supports. Her grandparents died early, and she had nobody. So she was trying to find herself and find a new home and find happiness. So we've been all over Alberta, sometimes Manitoba, but mostly Alberta. And it was tough. Sometimes we're literally on a road or in a shelter or downtown Edmonton YMCA. I remember my little sister, just tiny, and my mom crying all the time because we had nothing, or if we lived somewhere, we'd have no food. It was a struggle, especially back then. There wasn't really as many supports now. But she was always trying. She never gave up. She always tried to access everything. And that's what I see in her. Even though it was hard to watch her go through that. But she always tried to access everything, where she tried to learn recipes where she could buy, like, let's say her little middle of the month check, she'd buy flour and homemade stuff so she could try new recipes that she was taught by her grandmother, because her grandmother fed so many people too when she was alive. Like, it was just a lot of, with my Métis heritage and being Indigenous, it was a lot of sharing and trapping and getting and sharing, just being a community within itself, which was the best part of it. Because I talk about the dark, but there's so much community and coming together if people needed help. But my mom, she wanted to do it on her own and be independent. I guess that's where I get it from, thinking about it now. The more I speak, the more I'm like, I'm just getting chills, because I'm like, yeah, that's where I get my independence, is her. I never acknowledged that she had a lot of mental health issues, which she didn't know. And now I'm learning, like, mental health, some stuff comes out from trauma or just the way you're brought up. So I just love the fact that she moved around and she was looking for an answer, and looking to, just like with her recipe, she was looking for good food made from scratch with barely nothing. So she was always trying to make nothing out of something. And that's what I learned from her. So she did eventually pass on, and I was heartbroken. I didn't know how to handle her. She had addictions at the time, and I didn't realize I was an alcoholic. But after she left, I was gone. Like my mental health was gone, and I kind of seen the world from her view, and there was less judgment, or like, why wasn't she there? Why couldn't she do this? I was there. I was lost like her, and I didn't know what to do. And finally, eventually, after being suicidal for most of my life and with all the trauma, I finally went to treatment, which was really cool. I went to ADAC, and they're like, within 5 minutes of talking of my story, they're like, you need to go to treatment. So I went to treatment about 2014, which was the best thing that happened to me. I haven't been suicidal since then. It was an Indigenous treatment center, which I love because I got to connect with my culture, with people doing what I wanted to do. And I never knew about what I hear from people is they never knew about AA. Like you see it on TV or something, or you see like these supports of recovery, and it's so taboo or like shameful. And here it's like the best thing that can happen to you. Like there's happy people in there saying that I'm an alcoholic. When I first went, I was like, what? You're happy you're an alcoholic? What do you mean? We hide this. This is shameful. But just to come and be honest and be like, no, I'm just sick. Like I just have a disease and disease to please, and and it's just like trauma and all that other stuff learning now. Wow, like for people to be accepting of that. I love the culture now because people are more of recovery and mental health. And like if my mom was here, I think she'd still be alive, whereas I saved myself. So I sobered up, and before that I had some debts. I was doing some bad things before, so I started Bannock. Like I said, my mom taught me cooking from scratch. So I thought, oh, people like my food. So I tried to pay off bad debts before I went into treatment. And when I came out, not about a year, I had my little babies, and I didn't know what to do for money. I lost my license because before I went into treatment, I was facing jail, and I was out of treatment. I was gonna have babies within a year. I was still working on myself because you're just like a fresh little baby in recovery. And and I started Ginger's Bannock House. I was like, you know what? Let's try to sell some Bannock while I can stay home with my babies. I want to be home with them. I think I can do this. Their dad's being supportive, and I need a little extra money, and I can stay home with them. And that's how it was. Beautiful. People were very supportive. They didn't know my story at the beginning. They just liked my product, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then their dad eventually, he got sober with me too, which was pretty amazing. It was I didn't. There's a saying is called by attraction rather than promotion. So he was sober, and a few about a year, few years after I got sober. So now we're both a family like of recovery and healing, and I moved to Fort McMurray. We're always in Fort McMurray, and I came to Fort McMurray to bring the boys, and through COVID, Edmonton wasn't working because I was kind of had a place there, and coming here, I wouldn't come to Fort McMurray right away, but when I did, it just had so many opportunities here, so many Zoom, and I was on this path of healing and recovery, and they had so many supports for being an entrepreneur, and I just thought like I did a therapy, I did meetings, I did whatever I could to stay sober because
Yeah,
it was yeah, it's
that's so powerful. So powerful. Like there's so many nuggets inside there, Ginger. I just want to honor it for a minute. Um, you said something about your journey that's so incredible where um you were watching your mom go through this struggle, and then you had your own struggle, and you kind of got to walk in her shoes a little bit, right? And so many people grow up with many different challenges throughout childhood, and we reach a point sometimes where we realize, especially I feel like as we come into our own as parents even, that we realize our parents were just people. They were just people trying their best. They are just people that are flawed. They're people with their own hopes and dreams and fears, and they're on their own journey, right? And we just kind of, there's a forgiveness in that, because we realized they're just trying their best too, and they were dealing with some stuff too. And at least I know for myself, becoming an adult, that was a big realization when I had my own kids is, my mom probably felt a lot of these things that I'm feeling now, and we can have a forgiveness in that for some of the things that we experienced, right? But I want to touch for a second there, you know, growing up as a child with a mom that's struggling, super young parents. I mean, 14 and 16 your parents were, which that's a child, right? You know, I have a child that's turning 13. I could not imagine them having a child in a year. That would be very unrealistic. And so growing up, moving around lots and shelters and things like that, like what do you think was the effect that it had on you? And I'm sure there's probably positives and negatives within that, but maybe if you could just, you know, one big takeaway that experience in itself taught you of being in a shelter and situations like that as a child.
One thing it introduced me to was actually I have a lot of positives for it now. Now that I look back, it's all the people that worked within the institutions or the shelters. Like to work in those, you almost have to be like giving and kind. And so they showed me how to care for others that didn't have nothing, and the kindness and the love. Like 90% of the staff were amazing, or volunteers that wanted to help.
Yeah.
That and just a survival point of, now I can go up to anybody and say hello. Like at the beginning when I was younger, I used to stutter. I did, and I used to mumble. I couldn't talk clearly, and I used to put my hair down, and I had a lot of anxieties from the abuse that I went through. And
Mhm.
moving around had to push me to meet people, had to push me to go to new schools, had to push me to say hello and find my voice within me. So that was the best part, is finding other people and personalities and meeting people that were struggling, because the people that we lived with were struggling, right? And to understand their story, because we had sharing circles, or they'd share with us their lives.
That's
And
incredible.
in my 20s, I did go back to work in women's shelters, and I tried that route, but I didn't work on myself. Like I
Yeah.
just wanted to go out and help. So my advice for people is like, work on your soul, work on your spirit. Even if you want to do that, like type of social work or give back. I wish I worked on my spirit more. Like I was a good staff and I was a good work, but it just fell apart. I needed to build a stronger foundation
Mhm.
within helping others. So that's what I've done now. That's my biggest goal, is to have a strong foundation and tell my staff or anybody else to build on that.
Yeah, I think it's key no matter what we're doing, right? Um, what a blessing to see the light in the darkness of those shelters and those situations, because you're right. Most people go into those professions because they have a true heart to serve. They truly want to help other people, which is also why it has a huge burnout rate, is because they, you know, a lot of times they're taking on the energy of all of those traumas and things like that. And so those people are so incredibly important in our society. They're like the angels walking among us so many times, because they come to us when we're in our darkest moments and try and help us. And it's not an easy job, and they're not paid very well. But maybe, you know, you trying it out. I don't know if that was your path, Ginger. I feel like your path right now is so much more where you're supposed to be, because not only are you using your business to help other people, and Ginger has an amazingly successful business making Bannock, and not just Bannock, she makes like donut Bannocks and all different things. And we'll talk more about that a little bit in a minute. I want to make sure we touch on that for the audience. But you know, I feel like you're right on this cusp of using that story and that struggle to help so many people. And we're going to look back on this in 5 years and say, wow, Ginger was on my podcast. Look at that amazing rock star. You're coming into your own, you're coming into a light, and you're going to be able to help so many people with that. So thank you for sharing your story here. I know it's going to help a lot of people. And when you were talking, you mentioned how attraction versus promotion. And I think that is such a key lesson that you learned that is so great for the audience. You know, I grew up actually with family in AA, you were mentioning. And for me, it was like normal for us to go to meetings. It was normal for us to talk about the 12 steps. I know all the slogans, I know all the sayings, I know all the stuff. And I'm not an alcoholic, but I grew up in the program. And that was actually such a blessing in my life, because it was so centered around self-development, personal accountability, and things like that. But there's often people in our lives where we want them to change something about themselves, right? So it might not be addiction related, but maybe we just want them to be doing something else. We want them to be fitter. We want them to be more engaging. We want them to be more open. And that line, I think, is actually such a smart line: attraction versus promotion, right? Because we live by example, and then we hope that people say, wow, their life is pretty amazing. What is it that's different about you? I actually hear that. I'm a Christian, and so I hear that a lot, actually, in the circles I travel in Christianity, which, sometimes isn't the way that Christians do it, right? Christians sometimes have a bad rap because we try and like force it on people. Do this, do this, do this. And instead, if we just live our life by example, people will come along for the ride. They'll say, wow, Ginger, really, there's something different about her. What is it? And so, the sobriety journey is so beautiful that your father of your children came along in that journey. And you're exactly right, that attracting people to the goodness versus forcing it on people. No one wants to be forced to do anything, right?
Mhm.
As soon as you're forced, that fight comes out, right? Fight or flight. You're like, nope, that barrier comes up and you're not going to do it. So I'm wondering, like, you were mentioned that you went to a treatment facility that was culture centered, so Indigenous centered. And I'm wondering, like, what did that look like? And why is learning about your culture so important to you right now?
It looked like calling my spirit back because, like I said, we moved around and we were so lost in a lot of the residential. We didn't know who we were. Even asking my family to teach me about language, they're like, why? What is that good for? Like, what do you need it for? So there's a lot of shame in going
Mm-hmm.
into anywhere, shopping, doing anything Indigenous. So being Indigenous was shameful for me, and like coming from the intergenerational trauma. That's what I was taught. So to go to a facility where you're told your culture is beautiful, your language is beautiful, like, and that's who you are, and you're about all these traditions and these honesty and all this, and you're like, what? I'm not shameful, I'm not dirty, I'm not, my language is beautiful. So it was calling my spirit back and not having that pain, right? And I wish my mom seen that, wish she seen the beauty, because she did, but she had no idea about her culture. She knew Bannock, and she knew a little bit of like the trading and the community and a lot of the teachings, but we didn't put them together until
Mm-hmm.
now that we have more facilities or communities or elders that are learning the stories. We're asking elders, we're asking who are we? And that was a beautiful part, because it is tough when you're Indigenous.
Yeah,
It's very tough.
absolutely. I've seen it. I'm not Indigenous, but my husband is, and I've seen the shame in the family, different generations, right? Because if we really realize the intergenerational trauma that occurred, right? Everything was stripped, and this has happened throughout history in many different cultures. If you look to the Irish, that is what happened there. They were stripped of their language. They weren't allowed to do certain gatherings. The colonialism strips people of everything that makes them feel human or connected, and that's part of the control, right? When we control someone, we break them down, right? Even if you look at an abusive relationship, what is one of the first things that an abuser does is they isolate that person. And so that isolation technique was used on a massive scale. And so language was lost, culture was lost, but that sense of pride and belonging was lost. And yet, at the same time, look at how resilient it is. You, deep down inside of you, your mom might have been not connected to the teachings themselves, but that inherent DNA inside of her and inside of you was there, of sharing, of resilience, of pulling through, of community, of bringing together. All of those things were inside you anyways. And what I think maybe happened is you go to this treatment center and suddenly they put a magnifying glass on it. It's like a seed, right? The seed is there just waiting. And sometimes a seed can lay dormant for many, many years. And it needs the right conditions for it to say, it's okay to grow now. It's okay for you to come out. And maybe that's exactly what happened is your seed was in there. Your culture, that fabric of who you are was always there. And then you had finally sunlight and water and a safe place to grow, and look at what you've made out of it. And what a blessing for all of us. And I think we can all really learn from that, because we all have our history, but inside of us is always that seed of who we're truly meant to be and who we're truly meant to grow into. And what a cool example that you're living right now through that. And so I know that you mentioned that you went to treatment. What do you think was the breaking point or the catalyst that even made you go in and have that conversation? Because that is a really, that's something that some people never do, right? Frankly, some people never get to that point where they're able to overcome those demons. What was it, or what was happening inside that made you have even that initial conversation?
I guess it was what we were just talking about earlier. It was about attraction rather than promotion. And my sister just started, she started becoming a Christian, and she changed her life. And she was like, kind of like me, like I don't like to tell her story, but she was sober. And I was like, what? You're sober? Like, I'm probably not going to go the route. I can't go the route you're going. You're in BC. But what can I do here? And it was finally it was my last suicide attempt. I woke up and my wrist, I destroyed my home because I lost my license again. And I tried to commit suicide again. And I woke up and I seen her sober. And I just thought it was beautiful. And she's like, God's here for you. Like, she really did. She told me that. And it was like, seeing somebody sober and saying, like, you can do this, sister, I believe in you, was like the best thing that happened to me, because I went to I saw it the next day and I made an appointment, like I said, because I seen her doing it.
Wow.
And she really inspired me to
What a blessing. I mean, again, there's lots of people that have probably had that conversation and they still didn't take the steps, right? And everyone's on their own journey, and nothing against it if they haven't taken those steps, because it's incredibly hard. It's incredibly difficult. And you go to treatment and it doesn't always successful. That doesn't mean that that you've done anything wrong. And in fact, right, it's incredibly difficult. It is like a psychological disease as well as a chemical one when you're addicted to a substance, right? There's a physical nature to it that is incredibly hard to overcome. But it speaks to the strength inside you that you were able to persevere and get through that and be able to still withstand all of those obstacles, because it is incredibly hard. And every single day, I hear it is a struggle, right? There's always things that come up and trigger us. We think we're over the hurdle and then something pops up, right? No matter what that struggle is, there's different things that maybe, in my life that trigger you. And you think, oh, I'm over that. And then suddenly, boom, something pops up to say, well, you're not really, right? And it's a constant evolution, a constant growth of becoming stronger and stronger and stronger against those triggers and those adversities that we have. So I heard you say something before, always be a learner, always be learning. And I'm wondering, why is that so important to you? And what do you think that benefit is to someone's life, being a learner versus just kind of staying the same? I'm an adult, I'm good, I've got it all together.
It stopped me, like, once I said, oh, I know it all, or I got this, it stopped me from pursuing anything. And now, once I said I'm a learner and I'll always be a learner, I'm just bringing it all in, and I learn something new every day. So in my recovery, I'm like, okay, I just do the 12 steps and we're good. And I get a spawn, or you know what I mean? I get this and I get that and I'm good. And I do the therapy. Well, that didn't happen. It just opened, like you said, it opened such a next level of anxiety. And I'm like, oh no, I'm sober. I'm seeing my life. I'm facing me sober. That was hard. So I I've already come to the conclusion that I'll always be working on myself. I'll always be in like some type of therapy or betterment of anything in my life, whether it's like physical, mental. So within the Indigenous culture, there's a physical, mental, spiritual, and physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. So
Mhm.
I'm always working on those, and I'm on the physical now. But I believe that in order for me to thrive now, I have to always be on that. And I have to tell people I don't know. And even like my failures, oh, I'm sorry. Like I messed up. So like right now I'm working on my physical and relationships because I believe I had a lot of trauma in my relationships, like every part of it. So I'm just giving you an example of how I work on myself now. So yeah, I did the recovery and I still work. I have a sponsor, I have supports, I go to meetings, I do what I need to do. But I have now I'm on the physical. Now I'm researching and I'm a learner in there. And now I'm a learner in the relationships. Like why are these going wrong? So I'm not like, oh, we're not friends or we're breaking up. You know what I mean? Whatever. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
what part did I play in this? What did you
Right.
do, Jen? Where can you come from? So that's a learner part of me wanting to know, what am I doing? Why am I eating wrong? Why am I not showing up for myself? Like what's going on here? What's blocking that? So that's, and I love finding. And once I find, I just like, oh, there we go. Look at that was it. And it was there all along, but you don't see it. You don't. So I tell people, go out of your box, like talk to people, talk to whatever support you can. And if you don't get along with them, move to someone else. Don't be like, I didn't get along with that therapist, or I didn't like that elder, like they're not for me. I'm done. It's not my thing. Don't stop there. Like not everyone's gonna be your thing. People are just human. And you might not connect with them. But if you want this bad enough, you gotta chase it. You gotta keep showing up and saying, okay, I'll try this one. Okay, I'll try this one. The best thing I heard was I think it was Steve Harvey, and they're like, or one of those motivational talkers, and they're like, what if your parents gave up on you when you're walking? Like they're just like, no, you didn't get it. Like you're just gonna sit there and crawl the rest of your life. Like, no, we gotta show up. We gotta walk. We gotta keep going. We gotta find that there. We gotta find our culture. We gotta find our. Ooh, I'm just getting chills as I say this. I'm like, ah, this is like you have to find it. Don't give up. And people are people. You might not connect to them, but you may. And some people, one of my friends, she's like, they're in for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. That's who's going to be in your life. Like, it's either going to be for a reason to teach you, and or a season or a lifetime. So yeah, that'll always be a learner of people, especially people. People are the hardest to deal with, including myself, right? And that's I'll always be open and honest. I did because when I knew everything, it stopped me and
You're so
it
right.
slapped me in the face, and I fell.
You're so right. Yet so many adults do it. I think you know, you are just such an inspiration. You're so smart and right because Ginger, I've heard this saying so many times, you know, water can stagnate. Water is the giver of all life, but also still water stagnates really fast. We always have to be moving. You always have to be moving forward, 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 or you're moving backwards. You're either growing or you're dying. Um, you can't stand still. And so many people just think, well, I'm an adult now, I've got it figured out. And I think to me, the actual purpose of life is actually for us to be here to learn, right? We forget so often. We're so caught up in the daily life of our society, of our culture. I have to get a good job. I have to get an education. I got to keep my job. I got to pay my bills. I got to make sure my kids are at school. I got to make sure the house is clean. And like that stuff is all distractions from our actual purpose, the actual reason why is there life? It is not to come to earth and grow up and pay a bunch of bills and die. There is more to it. Yet so many people do exactly that. They never evolve. They never do the work. They never seek out. And that's a constant activity that you have to do no matter how old you are. I don't think it ever ends. The pursuit of growth is the reason why we're here, so that we can constantly elevate ourselves to a whole nother level and that we can help the collective do the same, right? There's a saying that you're an average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And it's so true, right? If you're spending time with people that are depressing, you're probably going to be depressed. If you're spending time with people that are doing a lot of unhealthy habits, you're going to probably do the same. That's why in sobriety, oftentimes you've got to cut a lot of people out of your life for a while because you can't be in that environment. You have to change it. And in business, it is so true as well. We have to surround ourselves with people that can give us advice, can cheer us on, because I'm sure as you were growing your business, as I was growing my businesses, man, we had lots and lots of hard days. And when I first started my business, my husband and I started our first business in 2004. There wasn't even like internet at that time. I'm making myself sound old, but we started when we were young. So that's my caveat. There wasn't even internet. There was no such, I never heard of mentorship. I had never heard of any of these concepts. I had no idea. So we were just trying to figure it out on our own. And I often think back, man, if we were to start today, where would we be? Because all of the things that we've learned along the way, a lot of our success has come from learning from other people. I want to hear about your business. You have a business locally where people line up for your product, which is not something that typically happens in a business. Typically, it's difficult, and I'm sure that you've had difficulties along the way. So, can you tell us, like, what was your inspiration to continue going? You told us how you started it. Like, maybe it was just something that we could, create some money to be able to stay home with my kids. But now it's transitioned into something else where you employ people in recovery. You're growing a business. You have Ginger has, for people that are not in our local area, this podcast will hopefully be listened to maybe even worldwide. She has a mix, so her Bannock mix, and if you don't know what Bannock is, it's a type of bread. You can Google it. But it is special. It has love inside of it. And she has a mix coming so that you can be able to have that product at home, even if you're not able to come to Fort McMurray. Hey, I think it's worth a trip to Fort McMurray for her Bannock, actually, to eat it fresh, to enjoy it. It's worth the trip. But can you tell us, Ginger, when you were transitioning into now this is a business, what was that coming from, and how has mentorship helped you through that process?
Ooh, well, like I said, locally, I had a lot of mentors, and I seen the line. I'm like, oh my goodness, like people actually like this. It was very humbling for me because like I said, I'm with the healing. I have a hard time believing in myself or even my business. I'm still working on that to celebrate myself and celebrate my business. But locally, they're offering all this stuff, and I was like, you know what? I still need to make money, and you still want to stay home with the kids, and you could do it part-time and casually. And the supports here, like they have amazing supports, and I'm pretty sure they're having them more in other towns. But they had Startup YMM, the Chamber of Commerce, Fort McMurray Economic Development. They had webinars, Business Link, like just Alberta, but more local. Wow, the local support here. I want to brag Fort McMurray up. Your McMurray Magazine, the support here, and the community. That's what really made me feel special and more. What is that called? More brave, I guess, and more. Yeah, it made me brave because they believed in me. Yeah. So, like you said, surround yourself with the 5 people. Surround yourself with the right community. Like if just in the right place, and like you said, where you're gonna grow is who you surround yourself with. And they were just behind me, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, this is so amazing. Like, especially me telling my dream, because I always wanted to help others. I always gave back since I was a young girl. I've always been an entrepreneur, and I was wondering, how can I do this? So like employing the people in recovery was amazing, and having the mentors and having like the people here that believe in your business and that tell you that you're amazing, or to come and hire you, or even to try out, or even to failure helped me a lot. Like with the Bannocks, some of them were tough before, and somebody gave me feedback and I was hurt. I was like, you know what? That's good because now I'll work on a different. So that's how Gin Bits came out of it. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example with my being an entrepreneur. I do want to give up sometimes when people are like, oh, I don't like that. No, no, thanks. Like that's not for me or whatever. So when I first started making the Bannock, I made the Bannock, and then the leftover dough, when I'd do Bannock, right? I'd take them out and I'd have leftovers. So I'd rework it, and then I'd make more donuts. Well, those ones were a little tough. And somebody told me, they're like, oh, yeah, it's not really our thing. I was like, why isn't there a thing? These ones are good and these ones aren't. Anyway, with the leftovers now, I make little bits out of them, and they're called gin bits, and I glaze them. And they've been a phenomenal hit. Like people just love them. They're like, we can't stop eating them. So that would be my advice as an entrepreneur. Like your failure, yeah, you're going to fail. You have to. You have to fail. And you have to have people to tell you that. You have to have them in your audience. I don't know why, but you do. You need them. Life's not going to be awesome. You need those people that tell you and humble you and bring you back down to make sure that you're doing right for yourself. And I wasn't trying to do it the right way. Well, no, actually it wasn't the right way at the time. I'm just saying. And it worked out to be like an amazing product. Now we have gin bits from the feedback and from the failure. So my advice is go around locally. There's so many supports now. You have it all. Like there's grants out there, even for Indigenous women, for women especially in business. It's a part of my heart because statistically we don't make as much. We're not paid as much. We don't get the businesses. So I'm really pushing for women, not because I think we're better or anything. We just need a little bit more help. So I'm always going to help the person that needs more help. But right now, just start and get your ideas out there and be brave about it. And be brave to be like, oh yeah, I messed up, right? Let's try something else.
Yes, that's it right there, Ginger. That's so true, is that your failure created some of your biggest success, because the gin bits are what people really, really love, I think. I mean, they love it all, but people really go wild for those. I know for me, trying it, it's something really special. And there's something really key in there, exactly that. Your failure is what produces the success. So it wasn't a failure in any sense of the word. It's actually required for you to elevate. It's actually required for you to stumble forward, for you to elevate, and for you to get to the thing that is actually going to help people the most and that's going to create your biggest success. So many times people are scared to try and they just keep waiting on the sidelines and they never actually do the thing that's going to get them there. Whatever business that is, you have to suck. You have to go through the hard times. You have to just stumble forward and do it bad. You have to just take the first step. You can't sit on the sideline and research forever. You can't sit on the sideline and plan forever. At some point, you have to take action, and that action is going to be imperfect. That action is going to be hard. But because of that, because of your perseverance, that is actually the requirement in the recipe for success. We have to have those struggles so that we can get to this success. No one starts walking, like you said, without stumbling. It's a requirement. And so that is exactly it, Ginger. You hit it right perfectly there, is that you just have to get out there and do it, and you have to fail forward, and you have to take those people's comments and don't take it to heart, and use it instead to fuel you to greatness. Use it instead to fuel you to your next breakthrough. I think that right there just gave me chills, because it is so true. And so many people just wait on the sidelines forever, and they never actually fulfill their true purpose. And it's such a shame, because not only are they losing out, but the world is losing out on that gift that they have to give the world. So you are a gift to this world. We're so grateful for you. We're so excited for you. So can you tell me, when is the mix coming out and where can people find it?
Awesome. Right now it's at Heritage Park, Heritage Village in Fort McMurray. We have some mixes, and we have a website launching actually after this call. I'm going to be starting the website. It should be out by May 1st, and you could order online. So we will ship. We'll ship in Canada for now, and then we'll look at international shipping. And we might have some other products coming up. So we're working on a few new products that we can grow together, and hopefully, just hopefully other people can start their own Bannock houses of recovery, helping other people and just building up and finding culture. That's my big dream, is having more Bannock houses that people own themselves and they build themselves up in their communities, right?
Yes, a Ginger's Bannock conglomerate. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing. I'll link it in the podcast show notes and online as well. But does the website have a name right now, Ginger?
Yeah, it's gonna be Ginger's Bannock House .ca for now.
Awesome. We're so excited. I know you've got some sweaters posted on your Facebook somewhere I saw. I'm like, I want a sweater. I think
Yeah.
that's an easy way people all over can support you as well if ever that becomes part of your product line on product online. But I just want to honor you and your story today. I feel like it's going to help so many people. I do believe that you're stepping into your light. I do believe that you were a seed that was planted and you're in the right conditions right now. And it's going to be really exciting to continue to watch your story and see where it goes, because I know that I just know in my heart right now, I have chills from the conversation, because I know on my heart that you are destined for great things, that you are a blessing not only to our community, but to our country and all of the people that will be listening to this today. So thank you so much. And keep us updated on the progress. We would love to share it with the audience of that website when it goes live, and we'll be cheering you on. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.